There's always a delay, and it's usually right now. So I'm gonna start talking. Very happy Friday the 13th, everybody. I'm pretty sure that we're live already, so that's why I'm chatting now. Okay, there's the mute. Okay, I think we are going on. Yep. Happy Friday the 13th. Boy, oh boy, have we had some crazy energy lately. It's been insane. And the number of emails and individuals reaching out and through Telegram and stuff. Um, I I've been able to read your subject line, and there's so many emails coming in. I just wanted to tell everybody that everyone's having the same symptoms. We're all having this incredible increase in what's going on, and some are feeling rather euphoric with it, and sometimes it's temporary bliss. And some are really struggling. So if that's you and you're out there and having all of these experiences right now, please know that you're not alone. And Friday the 13th is actually, I've always had the experience with this particular day as being a day where even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment, looking back in retrospect, I'll always see that there's profound and big events that happen on Friday the 13th, and they're always for the highest joy and good for you, so and there's a lot to unwrap about this topic. So I'm just gonna should I'm gonna go around and introduce everyone, just briefly. In fact, you guys want to take a moment to introduce yourself? That might be a little bit more, make more sense instead of me talking for more. You want to do that? Okay. How about we have Dwayne? Dr. Dwayne, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, I'm Dwayne Hartman. I'm a trance alchemist, and what that is I use trance and alchemy, so hypnosis and alchemy. So that's what I that's what I do. I'm in right now. I'm in British Columbia. I'm in Dawson Creek. Yeah,
Ooh, that's a lot of code right there.
yeah. And you can hear me fine, can you?
Oh yes, I can perfectly.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
I don't know. I guess I'll just let it go to the next person.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Varley.
Hi, I'm Varley at Lavender Sky Panther YouTube channel. And I, as of 2018, was quote unquote activated to start seeing craft cloaking in the skies all day, every day, all night, every night, no matter where you are in the world. So uh, I've seen them in New Zealand, seen them in Texas, wherever I am, they're there, and you can too. And I show you how to do that. And I also document nature observations, also intuitive messages, anything that wants to present in the spiritual realm, kind of words, wisdom, and spirit of the day things. So it's a pleasure to be here, and especially with this fine group of everyone. It's fun to be in this format. And for everyone out there in the audience, let's have fun today.
That's gonna be last. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'll remember after, because a few of you have YouTube and otherwise kinds of links, I'll remember to add that because as a person who's commenting, not the host or the channel owner, you can't put links up, but I will. For each of you that would like to, please contact me. I'll actually, oh, I don't know. I don't think we can stop going live. And also,
Don't worry about it. Let's flow.
email me. Anyway, yeah, we'll figure it out. So thank you very much. Welcome. And then let's go to Brian. We're just gonna do boy girl like that.
Yeah, I'm Brian from the upper northeast of U.S. I don't really define myself. I'm just curious on the adventure, and I love having these kinds of conversations and see what kind of rabbit holes we put down.
Right on. Welcome. I'm really excited that you're here. Thank you for coming. And then Cara.
Hey everybody, Cara Morris. I'm just, I guess, a country girl, ex-sailor, but yeah, I'm kind of deal with everything from the skies to the elementals and everything in between. I'm just here to share the light, and yeah, I hold a monthly Soup and Stars group where just awake souls come to the farm and just share soup and bread. But other than that, just a mother of two star seeds.
Wow. You said a lot. That was awesome. Well, thank you very much, all of you, for joining us and being here today. So, oh, I'm gonna hit record. There we go. So now we're officially started. Um, uh, y- every one of you are connected in a lot of different ways to one another. I don't know how much you guys know that, by the way. I think it's really interesting because I invited a lot of different people, and the fact that you've joined is your own code that maybe we can discuss at a later time. But um, so today we were kind of thinking we'd talk about maybe some of the topics having to do with, you know, well, right now we're in this period where our history is being unwritten for us. And in so doing, this is part of the veil thinning. This is part of returning to soul connection, your own soul as a consciousness, that is an identity in some way. And so to do these Akashic memory of the all kind of stuff start to come through. And so that's why we're doing these unpacking conversations on these shows right now. Like this is not typical for me, as a lot of the people in the audience will probably know. And you guys, this is something we're doing right now because I've been guided by spirit to do it. And one of those important topics has always been the missing 13, the whole story that they so perfectly and concisely tell us about who the Knights Templar were, who this Philip the Fourth person was, and he like kidnapped the Pope and all this stuff. And at the same time, Spirit's been telling me for over a decade the connection of the French royal line to the line of Jesus. And that, after whatever it was had occurred, whoever Jesus was, the family and the descendants of this family were the French royalty. So if that's true, then we're likely in a place where we're talking about somebody who would likely have been from the line of Jesus. So what is the story of the Knights Templar? Because it's such a amazing conversation piece that so many of us have joined in on. I kind of would like, what are your takes on it? Do you have anything that, and you can share a strong opinion, let's hear what you got to say.
Well, this bloodline that you're speaking of, um, there's actually a consciousness line, right?
Right.
As well. And that's heavily connected to Sophia. And so it's what I've been studying anyway is this connection to the divine feminine. And even like with the males, they have to connect with the divine feminine. But also, what I'm finding is that uh, because of such a masculine influence, that even our the divine feminine is welcome to, in the feminine population as well, because there's been something going on there as well, to get us off this track.
Mhm.
And this track is literally surrendering to the right brain, leaving the left brain, surrendering to the right brain, and there is only that path. And it's not easy to focus and maintain because we keep popping back and forth like ping pong
Right.
ball. But we're all this divine bloodline.
Mhm.
And all we have to do is keep it keep it steady within our life. Like when difficulties show up, right? Things show up, we know that that's from the realm of chaos,
Yeah.
right? And that we need to just come back and center and come into this divine love, the divine self, to remember who we are, what we are. And that isn't a bunch of head work, it's more feeling work.
Yeah. I'm going to interject really
Oh,
quickly. I hope that's okay, just to add the little tip to that. That exactly goes along with the message since March 2024 and on the 3-3 portal when Spirit and Spaceship were showing me that we're moving from the Trinity to the Quadrinity. And that's not leaving behind the Trinity, it's adding what was left behind, and that's the mother. When it's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, you forgetting the mother, then this Christ consciousness within is inaccessible. This power that you speak of, and so I think that this is really cool because this particular month we're in now is really the global pull to it. That's why there's such a dense feeling. It's the releasing of the roots that have been um, in 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 the soils beneath us or
Yeah.
somehow grounding us falsely.
Yeah.
can I piggyback on that? What both of you have said? I was led down a rabbit hole, which actually involves Kara as well, so I'm glad we're on. Um, I was led down a little, side trail, but it totally works in with the idea of Sophia being wisdom. There's so many allegories and stories and histories, whether it's biblical or whatever, talking about the wisdoms of everyone. And for whatever reason, there is a reason. I'll truncate this, but I was led to look up the ancient name for Oman. Okay. Oman was Sheba. What do we have? Queen of Sheba, the story,
Right.
famous story of Queen of Sheba. Well, she was a divine, or I don't know, I want to say divine. She was a feminine embodying wisdom. Now, quick note to Kara, look up Oman because they did shipbuilding and they mined copper. That goes into the Titanic discussion, but we won't go there now. So it's said, and of course, all the histories, we got to see what clicks as true or what, if they say one thing, you can guarantee it was the direct opposite happened, right? So,
Yeah.
but Sheba apparently, okay, allegedly, went to, she heard of Solomon, King Solomon. Okay, we got the masculine, his wisdom. So the story goes, again, what can be trusted? Feel into it. She goes to King Solomon to challenge his wisdom with a series of riddles, which he supposedly successfully answered. And then she goes back and apparently bears his child. And that's a whole nother story of these bloodlines and royal lines. However, it's just interesting because that's the story. Now, I want to just finish this off to just put a little punctuation on the feminine idea. She goes back, which was, remember, it was Sheba, okay, Sheshe, and it's Oman, put a W in front of it, woman. Just thought I'd throw that out there because I
Huh.
just discovered this the other day. And I was like, wow, that's the real origin of woman, not the rib and the womb and the whatever. I think it has more to do with these other stories that we are coming into again now, discovering.
Yeah.
Can I
I,
say something on that?
Go
sorry.
ahead, Cara.
I just
You,
find that really fascinating because I got really into the legend of Sheba and the Queen of Sheba. And she was fascinating because when she did travel to Solomon, there was a story. It was in the book of Master Hiram, who was the architect of Solomon's temple. And he fell in love with the Queen of Sheba. And there was a whole story written about when she traveled to test Solomon with the three questions. She actually time traveled her tribe, so she was actually yeah, there was all documented where there was at least a day and a half to 2 days missing of their travel time, where they had proceeded further in their path and got to Solomon quicker than expected. Yeah.
Wow.
That's in keeping with the story of the adepts that's written in the late 1800s and the masters of the Far East, the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East. And in their a party, and again, this is story, so take it there's truth in everything. So they leave from the Western world, they do expedition to the Far East, and they come upon a tribe or a group of people who said, they couldn't do it yet. They're trying to master what these adepts can do. So the other ones that could said, well, we'll be back. We're going to go talk to so and so. And sure enough, it was like a week's travel time. They went and they came back and they were just like a human telephone coming back and forth. So yeah, these stories, there's truth to them, and adepts, okay, there's portals, but there's also people who just use a thought and show up, like the whole Jesus consciousness, an example.
Right.
I read that series of books many years ago. I still refer to them, and they became my spiritual practice. And I'm telling you, uh, yeah, everyday life doesn't teach you what you're going to see when you read those books.
Mm,
Yeah, they're
You-
they're they're brief too. There's 6 of them, and they're really
Yep,
easy reads. And yeah,
yep.
highly recommended. You'll get something out of it, including reference to Sasquatch or the Yeti or the wild men in the Himalayas and that.
Yeah,
right.
if you want to know what the human potential is, just read those books.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if maybe after we are done with this, maybe if you would like to write in the comments so people can find those resources, that would be really cool. Um,
Yeah.
Brian, would you like to add anything? I don't want to put you on the spot. You can talk about what we're talking about, or you can talk about Knights Templar, or you can talk about Friday or 13 or anything you want.
Update about Friday the 13th, but I want to see where this conversation goes first. So
All right. All right. Thank you.
And after, I don't want to talk too much. I'll step back, but I do have a ton on the Friday the 13th if we want to go there.
Go for it.
Oh, okay. Well, like you mentioned, for people who don't know, because I had to look this up too, and actually I just hit on it when I found out the topic might be going this direction. There's a great podcast. I'll send you the link later, but they were just saying in summary, it was King Philip IV of France, yeah, ordering the arrest of all of these Knights Templar because they were the bankers, and the king was tired of owing debt and money to these people, and so basically arrested them. Supposedly the Pope was loosely involved, and then some were burned at the stake. Now, of course, this is just the story of people needing to be eliminated who knew too much or were starting a coup. That's all this is. Or it's turf wars or infighting and all of this. We all know that, the banking, the Vatican, and the DC, those are 3 branches of the same tree. So you got military might, banking might, and the religious and mind control might. But anyway, so that happened when? Supposedly Friday, not only Friday the 13th, but October
October. Yeah.
1307. 1307. Now, when you go to numerology, which these secret society types, these are the forebears of that, the Freemasons and all of that. You look at that, what is 1307 in numerology? You got, okay, not only is it 4 plus 7 is 11, but it's a 7-11. So what did they say? Was it the Moors? Correct me if I'm wrong. Were they 7-11? They came in the whole conflict between the Spaniards and the Moors. Anyway, there's tons of code. It's 9-11, 2-11,
Right.
11-11. It's always going to be that. Anyway, so right away we know we have a little story that's just marking whatever these secret societies love to do, right? But
Right.
anyway, Freemasons, I'll make this quick. What is their logo? Because I'm going to tie this into stuff you've already talked about, Mila, and it ties into the banking and the control and all of it. I'm going to try to hit this real quick and then I'll be quiet. So, what do we know? Well, Knights Templar. There's 2 versions. Again, which one you want to believe, there's truth in everything. Look at their symbols, okay? Whether it's the Catholic Army, doing good and protecting the Holy Land, rah, 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 or whether it's later the Freemasons call themselves Knights Templars, but they say, no, we're not those Knight Templars, okay? But look at them both. Knights Templars of the Holy Roman Empire, what are they wearing prominently? A red cross. Knights Templar of the Freemason orders, what do they have? A red cross. What is red cross?
I have that
Rothschild.
written down too.
Rothschild, okay? Rothschild is Rothschild, the pronunciation of it in German, which means red shield, okay? Not red cross, but red shield. So we know they're all tied together. So as much as they want to say, oh no, we're not that Knights Templar, sure they were. Of course, they're all tied with banking. Of course, it's all the same, thing tied together. So I also was looking up, I know you mentioned this, Mila, about the etymology of check and checks with banking, right? I don't know if you were going to go there, and I'll hold off if
Mhm.
you were going to. I'll wait, let that be your topic, and we'll see if we cross through. But anyway, with the whole banking, the king wanted to murder the Knights Templar because he didn't want to owe them money. So we know it has to do with banking, okay? Now, this gets into another little, I'm trying to see how I can make this seamless. I may or may not. But when looking behind me, I put this here for a reason. That's the Doge's Palace in Venice. Venice ties prominently into the story because if you look at Shakespeare, he even wrote what? The Merchants of Venice. The Doges, which now, where have we heard that word recently? The Doge, okay. They say it's the Department of Government Efficiency. No, those jokers are referring back to Doge's Palace and the Doges who ran and ruled Venice, okay. Supposedly pre-Pope, they were the military naval custodians and running that show. Later, they became civil administrators, supposedly. No, that's the seed and the might of it all. Okay. So anyway, we've got them sitting there who wear hats that look remarkably like the Pope's, who also are called, I forget the name in Italian, but they're also referencing things that look like the white Egyptian princes, the hats they wore. So what I'm trying to say is these are not only groups geographically on Earth, they're tied galactically. They come in, they're in all the seats of power. And then what happens? They take their banking system over to the US, which are what? Colonies, which is what? Like ants, colonies, right? What's the flag that starts to develop over there? And I promise this will relate. We have stars. Why do we have stars in the flag with a blue background? These are galactic origins. It's right there in the flag. When you look at Piazza San Marco here, behind here, there's always all of the medieval churches and things you look up before they whitewashed it, by the way, in the Reformation, with a huge reformation of the churches. You had the stars, the gold stars, the blue sky. They're showing your origins of where you came from. And now they're whitewashing it because they don't want us to tie it together. So why else would you need to have stars, right? Stripes, 7 and I'll tie it together. I'll try, guys. 7 red, 6 white, 13, right? They say that's for the colonies. I suspect, no, that's for the banking families that rule the world, the 13. Anyway, then you get into the colors in economics. The red is supposedly, if we go galactic, representing the Anunnaki or the Yankees. The blue can be said to be the rebels or the more reptilian Draco line. They're all in the flag. They're all in the same house. They all do turf wars and divide the red and the blue. It's our division, right? The goes back to France because they have origins with France too with all of this. What? The fleur de lis, the 3, right? The 3 colors or the 3, they represent different things like valor, purity, and whatever. Same thing with the flag in the US. What I want to say is there was a more elegant way to tie all of this together, but I think I was just dropping enough. And I will depart to see if anybody wants to pick up any of the thread.
I'm going to add something, then I'm going to give it to Brian so Brian can have a chance. I just wanted to thank you very much. You included a lot of things. I'm really glad that because there's a lot of points that often don't get covered. I wanted just to interject something and then I'll give it to Brian here is that um this is something a connection that I did find and or I was kind of led to. I don't want to take credit for it exactly because it was kind of in a divine kind of way, but it had to do with when all this happened, what year they're saying this happened. And the fact that, in the previous couple of shows we've done in a group like this, we've established that there were 1,000 years added around the 17 to 1800s, and the J or the R turned into a 1. So in the 1700s, it was the 700s, right? Well, then if you also go back a little farther, um, around the 600s, there was something that had occurred. I think it was between the 300s and the 600s, uh, don't exist. It doesn't have record. And so if you take away all of those years, then supposedly the moment that this happened, that the fall of the Templars occurred in the October 13th, Friday the 13th thing, that would have been year 17 if this was true. Also, what I mean to say is that a lot of space between that time was proven to be missing, but what I'm being guided or nudged by spirit to see is that the time that we're talking about with the Templar and all that stuff, it went straight into the 1800s. So there was a lot of years added there in history. and this is the last part, I promise, Brian, is that um uh there was the uprising and all the stuff that was happening to do with this French line, where I started to think, well, what's up with this King Philip? Maybe he was actually a little onto something. He takes out the Pope, who's like, very invested in his Christian crusades. He was the one that started the Christian crusades, this particular Pope. And then, all of a sudden he's also, you know, saying we need to get rid of these Templar people, you know, um, and that Jesus line going to the French royalty. There's something to that, you know what I mean? And so, um, but then this is the last part regarding the Red Cross. That's the link I was meaning to do earlier. Is the Red Cross? Okay, so the Red Cross was officially was situated, um, supposedly officially in 1889. Okay, I happened to look that up. I happened to. It was one of those, I remember it from when I was a social worker, but I couldn't remember the date, and I was wondering. Um, Anyway, that was when the social workers began. And that's when Spirit's saying that history links. So it's got something to do with that window of the Knights Templar and fusing that line of time that doesn't really exist, that gap we've created, which would make us less than 17 ago. Was that when that happened? So anyway, that's the links I'm gonna make. I'm gonna leave it alone and thank you so much for all of you being here. This is really fun. Brian, your turn.
I'll try to follow up on that. That's a lot of good stuff. You didn't have to stop on my account. Um, Friday the 13th is kind of an interesting thing. Is I kind of got excited when you messaged about this because I don't know, stuff started coming through like it wanted to be expressed about this date. For me, I'll go in a couple different directions here, but for me, Friday the 13th has always been a good day. I've always
Yeah.
had an enjoyable day. It's always been a high vibe, spiritual day. And when I kind of felt into it earlier, it was like this is a portal. I'm like, a portal, and trying to find information about it, it's like it came to me that this particular Friday the 13th is pretty powerful because we're only a week away from the solstice. We're still in the effects of a full moon, which is pretty powerful. And since
Yeah.
13 is the divine feminine, the moon is the divine feminine, the power is multiplied into a very you've mentioned some of the stuff that's going on in June, but this also is amplified. The portal Friday the 13th is seen as a day where manifestation, creation can be big topics. Times to look at your shadow self, the shadow work, deal with unresolved things, letting go of the old, new beginnings and things like that. And so it's a pretty powerful day, but it's interesting the things they wanted me to talk about because it's like, I can talk about that. The movie Friday the 13th, and I don't want to go into the plot. It's the symbols within the movie that they wanted to draw to my attention. And the symbols in the movie, because apparently part of it was divinely inspired. My understanding is that it's hard to believe a horror movie like that was divinely inspired, but in a mostly unconscious society, spirit would find ways to seed spiritual concepts into places where people would be likely to see them, and then later those seeds would kind of bloom into flowers, if that makes sense. Not everybody
Right.
was spirituality books and stuff. We know in the 60s and 70s, people started to awaken in the 80s and things like that. And there was a lot of symbology in that movie about life and death. The movie had the sun out during the day, beautiful sunny day, nature, a summer camp in the Northeast that was beautiful. If anyone's watched the movie, you could sense the energy in the forest, the trees and stuff, really lively energy. A full moon at night, storm and rain. There's a lot of the duality in there. A mother's unresolved grief, how fear and love. And it's got that duality of what we've come Friday the 13th to understand. We've got the good part of it, the spiritual concepts that sort of have been raked over, and we've got the more negative, superstitious side of it, which the movie was supposed to try to capitalize on. The truth is it actually had a duality. You had kids in there. There were new relationships blossoming, new friendships forming, a lot of play and fun, divine feminine energy. And then, of course, you had the other side of it. But the duality was all contained within the movie, within the theme of Friday the 13th. And of course, it's, the people that made it didn't realize what they were putting out there. If you look beneath the surface, that's what it was. And an interesting side note is in 2014, which was a really strong year, which I'm sure you can relate to, was Friday the 13th, June 13th was on a full moon, and like the movie, had a beautiful sunny day, and at night it opened up and rained. And tonight, where I'm at, the same thing. Beautiful sunny day. We're still on a full moon. It's going to rain later tonight. So just like in the movie, it's like, oh, there's something to that. I don't know what, but there's something to that. But there was some, and there's a lot of movies I've been drawn to really watch anymore. But because of that symbology, there's something in there that's seeded about what Friday the 13th represents and allows us to look at both sides of the coin, the so-called good and bad. And so that's kind of my take, what I have to add into it now. But I find that stuff like that fascinating because it's not the stuff that everyday people look at. You know, oh well, that's a horror movie, yes, but there was something deeper if you look beneath the surface. And that's always the stuff that's fascinated me about anything I've watched or read, the story beneath the story.
Yeah.
What rabbit holes are we going down? What are you really meaning to convey here? And of course, I'm talking about the original movie, not the sequels and the story and the legend and all that stuff. It's what was contained within the original movie. And you look at it as standalone, but there's a lot of symbology in there. And I'm kind of fascinated by it. I'm not really sure why they wanted me to open that part up, but it's just something for people to kind of look at.
Thank you. I'm just going to say something quickly because I don't know what happens if the power goes out on my end. And y'all, if I do disappear, please keep going because it's a Zoom, and so that's probably going to keep working. Anyway, speaking of storms, we've been on and off pretty stormy today. I want to add something before it, just to make sure it got added. Um, is the 13 months, the months, and the fact that there were 28 days and there was never a blue moon because there was enough space to go around. The calendar always started on Saturday and ended on Friday. And it's just this whole thing, and forever and ever and ever, the indigenous of many different regions of the planet used turtle or tortoise shells as an example of the calendar because there's always 13 segments. And that's actually where April Fools came from, was because that was a day out of time. Like that wasn't the day out of time, which is May 25th. But there's this particular day is pulled up. I think that May 25th is when the day out of the time should have been, like or April 1st should have been. Anyway, that whole thing. But the taking away of the number is what I'm trying to get at. Like the hiding of it in plain sight. How often have you gone to a library and there not been a 13th row for books, or a hotel room, a hotel building? It goes from room 13 to 14. Sometimes they're clever and they add a half. Like it'll say like 12 and a half after 12, floors too. You're going up an elevator, you're on 12 and now you're on 14, and they've made it so it's hiding in plain sight. Why? What's the magic of that number?
Because they want you to realize and recognize that they have denounced the divine feminine in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah,
And that's the Freemason too, because they built the
Yeah.
buildings, right? So that would carry through to the building trade, and they're just test for the female, the feminine. Absolutely.
My research indicated too that this negative connotation of 13, Friday the 13th, and all that kind of came about when the patriarchy took hold as well.
yeah.
And wouldn't it also be, we got a number 4, right? So wouldn't it also be kind of a flip to the, the 4 elements and the,
Right.
the other positive of the 4, right?
Kara, we were talking a little while ago about how the 12 DNA strand is in the completion is 13. Was you, wasn't it?
I think so.
Would you like to explain that? I think this was perfectly linked to what we're talking about.
Um, I've kind of got a bunch of other downloads.
Please go do whatever you want. I don't want to put you on the
Sorry,
spot.
my
No.
brain gets jogged when I you were bringing up just about the Red Cross, and I kind of got stuck on that just because Hobart has the Dark Mofo this weekend, so we have a big inverted neon Red Cross above the city, and it's all this. I just thought it was really cool the how you embrace the dark to release the light, sort of thing. So it's a positive thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like unpleasant. Like often I see it as when spirit talks about we're getting ready to purge stuff, it always they show me as it. Because it you feel it, there's an ache and there's a desire to cause you yourself more discomfort in order to get rid of something that's not helping you. You know what I mean? But that's what we're doing right now, and so in some ways that's the way spirit explains integrating the darkness to me. It's popping is it because
Yeah.
you're embracing it in some way. Go ahead, Cara.
It feels exciting. It's like that Tartarian side of the city is coming to life, and all the hidden underground is being lighted and released and therefore healed. And um yeah, it just feels like a really positive thing. I always saw Friday the 13th as a positive thing. It's a bit like an opal where it's manifest times three. So it's just, you get a more powerful outcome with your intent on the day.
Right.
And also the cross is not just a symbol, but it's an energetic function.
Yeah.
So where they cross, that intersection, it's said is the portal, can be portal energy at the intersection point, or, it's focus. So just throwing that out there.
And the way the cross was before at that time, it was equal parts. It wasn't what we call a cross, where the it was longer down the center and
Right. It's more like the Greek cross, it's equidistant. Yeah.
right.
Now, do you think this has anything to do, carry through with the Red Cross that people donate to?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I have something to say about that.
Please.
Up here, we had a fire a few years ago, and everybody was like, donate to the Red Cross. Now, that was a city they had to evacuate 80,000 people, and they got them out of there and got them into another city. And everyone donated to the Red Cross, but at the end of the day, nothing came back out of the Red Cross to give to the people.
Mhm.
It was just to take.
Right.
And so I don't know uh, what that even has to do with anything, but is this Red Cross a continuation of this Red Cross that we're talking
Yes.
about?
I know that in England, the pre-World War One, I think one of the second Rothschilds in the line was like custodian over the beginning of the Red Cross in England. So it's
Oh,
directly tied with their family for sure. I know people who personally have done on the altruistic side who have gone to Africa, have gone to other places and helped people with good and golden hearts, just like there's pure people in the Vatican and there's the demonic ones. So there's the duality everywhere. So yes, the real work is being done by good-hearted people, but yeah, the overlords, the overseers are probably taking 99 cents on the dollar. Just saying.
yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's actually surprising. I got this information a little while ago. Um, was that in order to be considered a charity, you have to give at least 8 cents on each dollar donated to you. That's it. And the Salvation Army, Red Cross, n none of them qualified. Just
The, o-
I'm bringing up an image. I'm going to say real quick,
Oh,
just
okay.
to introduce it.
the
Just real
only
quick,
one that
hold on a second. Sorry, just want to show what I'm sorry I could put this up. This is an example of the cross I was talking about, and I can't get behind my. Oh, here we go. And then here's the American Red Cross. Whoa, I can't zoom out, can we? Um, Whoa, there we go. And there's the American Red Cross. See how it's the symbol of the cross is the same. It's this equal proportions, and that's the example of what I was talking about. Dr. Dwayne, please go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Dr.
Are
Dwayne, I'm
you gonna
sorry.
go? Dwayne, are you gonna go?
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna make real quick, and I can't help it. I have to say it. When we talk about Red Cross, again, colors are key. I'm going to tie everything to galactic origins. It's just what I know. It's come up too strong to look the other way.
Mhm.
You got Red Cross, but what else do you have? Back to our red blue division. You got the Blue Cross. What do we know Blue Cross to be? Blue Cross, Blue Shield. Okay, now I got a red shield because Rothschild is red shield. So you got red shield, blue shield. Blue shield, huge in the States, for anyone who doesn't know, the medical insurance company. Okay. Mega insurance company. So you're seeing also in all of the branding, of the corporations, it's going to be strong red, blue, or all red, blue, and white. Think of any logo for, I'm sorry, anybody. I know, Cara, you're in a very unusual, beautiful place in the world, but I'm going to be American centric for a moment. So Standard Oil, the beginning of Rockefeller. What do we, or not beginning, but you know what I mean. Standard Oil, red, white, and blue. Exxon, what is it? Red, white, and blue. Any of the gas companies, right? Pick any logo. You got AT&T. It used to be about Bell South, Ma Bell. It's been strong blue. Okay, blue, white. Pick any logo. There are very few exceptions. Maybe T-Mobile is magenta, but hello, pink is a derivative of red. So you got red and white making that, right? What am I saying? That's again the galactic groups, your north and south. You're, red in the north, Anunnaki, south, Dominion line of the Draconian and whatever. But whatever the case, it's always red and blue. So there is a reason why it's the red shield. So to me, that says we know exactly where they came from, and they came from whatever line. Now, maybe I have the players flipped. I don't know for sure if red is this team and blue is that team. However, we know there are two dominating forces that have come in to really F up the planet, pardon the French. Little nod and joke to France because, yes, they're involved too.
Right.
But the point is that at a certain point, we have two bold colors coming in to imprint on our minds to the point where now you're told you in the States you can only vote for one or the other. Well, no, you can also not vote at all. And you have other, choices, right? But that's hammered in, to our visual psyche, disrupting our entire psyche, taking us away from nature, getting us hyper focused on these things, right? And so I'm just saying, I don't know the origin exactly. Why a red cross, right? We have the cross of Malta, same thing. It's that it's a little flared out, if you look that one up, but it's the equidistant cross, but it has a little, flare to it. And if you look at that, I think that goes back into, I don't know if that's Sicily or, where we go on the planet for that. But anyway, point is, these are very specific things, and they're all kind of go up and owned by the top entity
Right.
that's controlling the whole show, right?
Well, isn't the family of 300 from Malta?
I think so.
Huh.
And so there you have that. I mean, the big power brokers of the world are the family of 300 are from Malta. As
They're
for
called the
what,
family of 300?
huh?
They're called the family of 300. That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
This ties back to the Knights Templar, something I just discovered when I was doing research before this.
Yeah.
And did the
See,
Vikings have a symbol on their sails? Typically, I know they had the dragon head on the ships, but what did they have also? The reason why I'm bringing this up, and I'll make it quick, the red and white stripes you always see, like on the sails somewhere depicted, right? So it's hitting me now. I'm just kind of laughing because it's just funny. On all the depictions of the Viking ships, we got red and white stripes and we got shields. I'm sorry, Rothschild, just seeing red shield. But this brings in an inner Earth discussion. Just going to drop it quick and the timelines. I'm not getting political. I'm not getting too newsy, but I listen to everything, including movies, because as Brian said, we get something out of everything, right? When there was an interview with Putin and Tucker, and I don't, this is not political. Putin
mhm.
came in and started giving a history, quote unquote, history lesson. Again, kernels of truth in there. He did say some correct things. He was talking about the origins of Russia, and I promise this relates. Origins of Russia. Okay. He said it was like 830 AD and change. Okay. 830 AD. Well, to me, there's been code given to me long ago when I was young, before I even know what it meant. The city of Novgorod. Novgorod is in Russia in the north. Okay. He mentioned Novgorod. So to me, he was putting in code, reading between the lines. That's the origin point of our modern man coming in. That ties in why Tartaria would have been in the north, because it's coming in from the north. You got Scandinavia, Vikings, Nordics. It was always the invasion coming in from the north. The Goths, everybody coming down from the north. What's closest to the north? This ties in. I've talked about this many times. Read the book, A Smoky God, A Voyage to Inner Earth, because on that journey, they, a father and son, find an entrance to Inner Earth to the north, leaving the ports of Scandinavia and going in there. Okay. That means that maybe these Vikings just conveniently popped up out of Inner Earth from the northern entrance, okay, and then started coming down. Okay, sure, they could have come from above too, but some of our craft are from above, some are also from Inner Earth. Maybe they just, and not even craft, sorry. Well, what's craft? It could be ship. We have airships. We were talking about Hindenburg and those kinds of things. Why is everything called a ship? Why is everything naval? We've got airships, we've got ships, we've got craft, we've got aircraft. You know, it's all about
Shipment.
the, huh? What?
Shipment.
Yes. So, yeah. And so they came down, right? And they're talking about origins coming down there. Then we have Caucasians. Why are we calling white people Caucasians? Did anyone think about that? Where's Caucasus? Those are the mountains near the Mongols in Tartaria. Okay. Different references in the Bible can be looked at, like Jacob's ladder, like E.T. dropping people down on the mountain, etc. Why else would it be Caucasians? That's always bothered me since a little kid, more than your junk DNA story with schools.
Yeah,
I'd be like, why are we Caucasian? Why have to fill out I'm a Caucasian? What the heck is that, right?
that's always bothered me too.
And then I'd say, like, I'm not white, I'm peach, if we're gonna really call it color, like what the hell?
Right.
But anyway, I
And you can only click one. Like I mean, most of us are mutts. Let's
everything.
be honest.
Yeah, but so what I wanted to say is the Rothschild connection. Sorry, I was going somewhere. They have, they show the red and white stripes. Why on those Viking ships? Is that just some new fancy, misinterpretation of the past, or they really find sailcloth and things with those colors? Because where did our red, white stripes for United States flag really come from? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? There's something going back, and the story, of course, is just not as it's been told. But for me, that ties in Tartaria. Then you've got another faction coming in, and I'm going to deviate, but I'll make this real quick, I promise. What do they say? There's 5 colors of the peoples of the world, right? Red, yellow. Somebody help me because my mind's fried. Red, yellow, white,
Black.
black,
Let's
and I'm
see.
missing one. Wait, red, yellow, white, black,
You're
brown,
go
maybe? Brown.
No, you're going the wrong. Sorry, you're going the wrong direction. So I'm getting
Yeah,
lost.
Lakota have a
Blue? No,
certain,
it's not blue. It's white, red, yellow.
and isn't it just black? There's black,
Yeah,
because,
black was on there. And then, so you have the red, we're considered the natives. The
right?
black,
So
the
wait,
people.
so red is North America.
So sorry.
Okay.
This is how I think. I'm just gonna let
Okay,
you
sorry, you
back.
go. You want me to go and then you go?
I'm
What I'm tying it to is where Galactics dropped us off. It's not Darwinism and evolution. Sorry, maybe there's a combination where something was dropped off and evolved a little, but okay.
mm,
Our origins. So you got North America, the red. You got Asia, the yellow. Black is Africa. Um, Sorry, we got red, I guess. This brings up the question. White to me is Caucasus Mountains, an anomaly dropped in the middle of a yellow region, right?
we said all of them right. Yeah.
Brown is South America. Okay.
So we have
So,
red, yellow, black, white.
okay. And I'm throwing in brown for South America. Okay. And I mean, we got various shades of all of this because those are the prominent ET races. You got like the Toltec, the Aztec looking people, which is different from the ones on North America. And again, North America could be a fusion coming in from Lemuria and wherever else. But then you've got Caucasus, it's very specific on those mountains. You got the
Right.
Nordics with the blue eyes. Hey, everybody's like revering the blue eyes who don't have them everywhere. Then you've got the highly anomalous 2% supposedly these days, green-eyed, red-haired, which to me that's inner earth. Anyway, I know I went on a tangent, but that's just where it went. I'll be
Thank
quiet.
you. I was going to add my really quickly say that the red, yellow, black, white is the native way, and there's that's the medicine shield. Or you see a lot of times it's just people in the audience understand what we're talking about. Um, and the legend of the prophecy having to do with the Rainbow Warriors that we all talk about has to do with the coming together again of all tables, all heads of tables of each of these. So it's got less to do with race than it does regions and a kind of class of human being that everyone were welcome at the table of conference for deciding things about society except the indigenous. And so they were counted as the red category. And until all four were able to be joined at the table, which just recently happened, then the things that we needed to have occur couldn't fully occur. So that's like the part we are in that prophecy. So I just want to add that last little bit. So Dr. Dwayne was getting ready to talk. Brian was getting ready to talk. I even saw Cara move. So which one of you three want to speak?
Go ahead, Cara.
You mentioned about the red and the blue, and I know the all the tanker ships we have that take the petrol around the world, all the companies are either a blue company, a blue logo, or a red logo. And I was just thinking about what you said about them two coming together, and it would make purple. So
Yeah.
bringing the tribes together brings that royal color together of blending them together, like Mila's background. So like you said, all seats at the table, all coming together.
Yeah. And the stripes of the American flag was the breaking of the unity of the circle. That's why the stripes are there, is what I got when you all were talking to. I was like, wow, that's very interesting symbolism. Dr. Dwayne was getting ready to speak. I could tell. Go ahead.
Oh no, well, I have one question, but I can't quite pronounce your name. Uh,
Mila?
Lavender
Oh, Varley.
Barley.
However you like, Varley, however, it doesn't matter.
So you're talking about aliens, and you were talking about the different types. I ran into a weird type. Um, and maybe you know something about it. I was picked off the highway like a strawberry driving. I was driving the car and I was boop, taken right off the road. And when I met these beings, they were they were emitting a golden light so bright you could hardly make out their facial features, and you could feel nothing but complete love from them, right? And they would just look at you, tilt their head, and all of a sudden you'd get this burst of love. But in the love, there was this communication going on. They were non threatening. They didn't have anything to do with probing me or anything else. They were very lovely beings, right? And I've had a hard time telling the story because everybody goes, "Oh, it's probably a trick." People are, very paranoid these days. But it was a very loving experience. It wasn't, I mean, they popped me back on the road again after it was all over and I was still going down the highway, but it was, 3 hours later. But, uh, but that was kind of disturbing, but there was a reason for that. So I'd have amnesia. But have you ever heard of that or run into them golden beings?
Mila, do you want to say something first? Because I do have something to say,
Well,
but I think you do.
there immediately for me, I got it was they were Arcturian. They were from an Arcturian group anyway. There are many different groups of this collective. Like we would distinguish, characteristics different in our own world from one another. However, this was a and this was intended specifically to activate some dormant parts of you.
Indeed.
You were
Yeah.
like what was it they call him a sleeper agent, and that was you're turning you back on.
Well,
Period.
I was at the time, I was kind of a drunken agent. And then they
Right.
picked me up, and then they reminded me what I'm here for, and then I went back, um, but then and it was a couple of weeks after I was at a party, a bush party, and there was this native man that walked out of the bush wearing the full native garb,
Yeah.
feathers, braids, the whole bit. He walks up to me and he says, "What are you doing?" And I says, "Oh, I'm just having a beer here at this bush party." Uh, and he goes, "No." He said, "What are you doing?" And I just went, like just froze. And I know it was one of them.
Uh-huh.
And I dropped my beer, and when I finally got my composure and I looked over, he was disappearing into the bush again. Just come to remind me to get off of what I was doing, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know what to do after that experience because I was just, plunked back here and now figure it out. What?
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, oh, sorry, did you want to go, Mila?
I just
Um, oh,
it's a thing that all of us do on some level. And so I just wanted to echo it for anyone listening, that a lot of us come in because we can do this and we're capable of it, and we come into such density from a higher frequency place, a very different climate, and the density, that's why so many of us experience depression and addictive personality type stuff, and that this is a super common thing of the fact that they came in, and when they did, to remind you to come back in. And that's exactly what I was getting to. And the last thing I'm going to say is the comment in the audience, and then it's Varley's turn. Darrow says, they just, and this is correct, I agree with this. They just look gold while your aura is getting used to them. It settles down after a while if you come up. So like if you just kind of like over time, I've noticed this too. And then you'll also notice the difference in your body. Your body won't go into almost adrenaline, it feels like you're shaky when these high frequency energies first start coming in. And after a
Yeah.
while, you stop having the shakiness.
Yeah. 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 But and I mean, it was a very cool experience.
Yeah.
It's something you just don't forget right away.
Chef Deb says, I think I would have pooped my pants.
I didn't. It was so much love. You it was wild.
Yeah,
It was so much love, but I could tell they were unified. Their divine masculine and feminine were one.
yeah,
They were one in the body. So whether they were Eon or whether they were something from the higher realms, I don't know, but I'm
right.
telling you. And then they shared a message. They showed me this pyramid that was turning in front of me. And every time the flat face came to me, a new symbol came off and went into my head and at the back of my head, right? And these symbols. And then it was many, many, many years later, like 40, that all of a sudden, or less, maybe 30, but all of a sudden I seen an image of the mind firing and the universe and what it looks like with the special filter with all of the planets connecting. And all of a sudden it hit me like a ton of brick and I could hear them again. Right.
Mm,
And these symbols were star charts. And uh, they said that these star charts hold the consciousness of the beings from other places. And there's so many coming in through the birth canal here to make a change on the planet. It
yeah,
was to help me recognize them and help them feel comfortable being here,
right.
help, sort of thing. So I don't know. I don't know how that works, you know, honestly. But I do recognize like people that aren't maybe originally from here, right?
Yeah.
in the uh in the loop of reincarnation. So, but this union is very important. I want to share right now. The divine masculine, divine feminine, this whole thing about twin flames, it was never about outside, it was always about inside.
Yes.
Coming into what's called the matrimony in that takes you right out of this whole consciousness that 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 the Luciferian concept and moves you right out into what we were supposed to be, right? Because that hypnosis has been going on for years. They're always trying to get people into that state of I'm powerless and there's
Yeah.
nothing I can do when you are all of it, you know. And that divine love like that is like nothing we've ever experienced here because when you come into that connection with yourself, um, all of the, I mean, people don't really understand the level of fear that they have buried underneath that when you connect, you go right be underneath that fear and you dissipate that fear. But there's an underlying fear in most all people, right? Of being of the society of everything that drives people, you know. Oh, I got to go to work today, and you don't even know why. You know,
Yeah.
maybe you have tons of money in the account, but you got to go to work because some invisible thing is going to judge you. Well, all of that is gone when you come into union and go in. Yeah.
What you're talking about has been called by spirit to me the pink frequency. Once we leave behind what we've been living through, which is called the age of suspicion, the age of
Mhm.
suspicion uh, creates the desire, the drive to be in privacy and secrecy, and that everybody outside of you are a suspect or somebody who could potentially cause you disharmony, hurt you, and by doing that, we've created a disharmonious frequency bubble around us between each and every other person around us too, even those closest to you that maybe you perhaps even share your bed with, and all the way down to the
Oh,
guy
for
down
sure.
the block. And this has been a self-perpetuating mechanism and
Yeah.
imprisonment of the self. And so as we reach into these, what they call the pink frequency, we leave behind the age of suspicion. And then, and only then, which is then is the now, because we're doing this now, is this global group telepathy going to come back online? And so that's what's happening right now. That's why we're all noticing that we're all in the same place, mindset wise. We're all,
I agree. And I'm going to say, don't wait for it.
yeah,
Wait for the group thing because that's another trick by the archons that you can't get out of here or you can't make a difference unless the whole
right,
group does it. Because they know
right.
darn well that you're not going to get all minds on the same path. I mean, we tried that with 10-pound Schofield reference Bibles and whacking people and telling them to convert. That we can't do that. But what we can do is go inside and that vibration starts people will start asking questions.
Yeah,
They'll go, hey, what's going on in you? And then and then we spread it that way. But
yeah.
but yeah, as far as everybody coming online, that I don't know what to say about that, dear. I've I've seen that not work so well.
Well, perhaps we're having different visions of what we're talking about too, because I am seeing it like, for instance, the reason that we've been making so many references over the past couple of pop culture decades has about, references to film, media, pop culture, and stuff like that,
Yeah,
has been to practice this group telepathy. And when I say global, I also am aware that. The counting beginning in 1914, um, and those that came from that period, 1/3 of us are not NPCs. And so if you really count the population, if you look at one third, then it would actually make a lot more sense, I think, rather than trying to connect. Like you said, there is this Archon energy still connected to some of the NPCs. It's true, and some of the Archon energy is connected to people who were on their path like ours and didn't decided to take a break
Mhm.
and didn't come back. And then that usually turns into something that we call narcissist. Not always. There's um, a connection disorder that occurs in the person that causes an empath to become a narcissist in an earlier stage of life. So I'm rambling, but what I'm just describing is so my idea of what uh, the globe or the world coming online in a telepathic way is counts as this one third coming on. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to share that we've waited 2,000 years for the return of Christ, and that was a really good holding pattern.
Oh, I hear you. Yeah, I'm not telling everybody to wait for anything. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is what's happening right now. No, yeah, don't wait.
No,
No
no,
way. No, no. Yeah.
because it's you stepping in and into it and actually experiencing it and feeling it in your body that sends a wave out for the rest to go, that's even a possibility, right?
Mhm.
If we wait, then we're in a waiting pattern, right?
Yeah,
I
I hear you.
sorry, I'll go
You're
back to
good.
be.
You're good. No, I agree because it's time to do something about it. It's time now. And reaching to the pink frequency is something I've been doing. I've started connecting with they're the 27 grandmothers, and they
Mhm.
kind of are guides of the pink frequency. Like at first when they first start coming in, I kind of felt like it was their frequency and they hold that frequency, but they're ushering in like almost like they're showing you the bridges that are there, already there. They're already there. You don't have to make
They're
any
there.
bridges. Yeah.
That's what I wrote a while back on my Facebook. I said, spirituality, like spiritual practice, is like knocking on the door that's already open. Step in.
Mhm.
It's time to step in. It's not time to contemplate it anymore. Step in. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's why we keep saying we're here.
I experienced this really interesting experience when I was in meditation and contemplating what is this source energy everybody talks about that, or I should say that 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 source itself was birthed from the void. Well, I got really curious as to what the void was, because if it's birthing a source, then what is this? Well, guess what? The Divine Mother that nobody talks about
Yeah.
calls it a void, right? And so I went into it. And when I went into it, a really surprising thing happened. All of a sudden I started becoming every every form and type of feminine there was. It was like flashing through me. Like I was the everything, everything. But it was kind of hard on my head because it was like, where am I? What am I? But all I did was go into the void and ask, who are you? Right. And this beautiful thing happened where I got to feel it, and I got to feel what it's like. You know what I mean? From another perspective, not from a male perspective, from a female perspective. Right. So that's ready for us to step into an experience like
Yeah.
Sophia, come in, move through me, right? So I can experience you, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you start looking at all these left brain ideas, these left brain things that are going on, the programming that went on. All of a sudden, you start floating away from it. And it's like, holy man, it is unreal as to what they've done to keep us from finding this part of ourselves.
Right.
You know,
Can I add something? Because I just have to do it real fast. Everything about Dwayne right now. As you're talking about source birthing out of the void and becoming that, I look at your background, you know. It's totally encoded in you. You've got the void and the gold is coming out. That's the light of the healers and the Arcturians and you know your work here obviously to do healing work. The word when you were talking about your ET experience, words came to me, golden healer. That's a crystal. Okay, that's in itself a crystal. And I think that's embodying who you are, like the golden healer when they visited you. Your name, Dwayne, comes from Old English and Irish. I had looked this up. I'm not a walking encyclopedia for this, but as you're talking, I'm just laughing because you are embodying everything that they came to visit you with. It's a part of you. You already know it. They're just giving you a wink and a nod to come into this, like you're saying, come out of the void and really fully emerge because Dwayne can mean Old Welsh is thin or slender, like an elegance to it. Or if you go further back with Irish, it means black. So you're an elegant, slender person. You got black. I know you usually wear black. Hartman is double masculine. So no wonder you're seeking the feminine to balance out because heart is a stag or a male deer and man. So you got the double man, right? Anyway, the ET experience, I'm going to touch on this very quickly because it's a common misconception by everybody. Oh, the alien probe. And again, alien is supposedly like a non-nice word. Not use whatever we want, right? It's just an expression. But supposedly ET is maybe nicer. I think there's even a better word, you know. But whatever the case,
Same.
we all know what we're talking about. But the point is, what is the big joke in mainstream? The anal probe, okay? Well, I just have this book on all the countless healings done by UFOs and ETs. I've had some myself. The probing and the evacuation of the bowels is also to eliminate and get rid of the meat and the heavy density stuff that's harming people. Okay, so there is a reason for that happening. It's kind of like having a beneficial colonoscopy. So, you know, yeah, okay, maybe somebody is getting probed and it did not feel good, but we got to look at that could be your ET family who has stepped in because they do monitor you. Imagine we're dropped off and this is an experiment. Like say someone dropped us off to Mars right now, or you pick a planet, right? And you had a loving family or friends that say, hey, let me check up on them. Let's make sure the atmosphere readings are right. Let's make sure they're handling gravity okay. And gravity's another story. It's not what we're told. But let's make sure they got no weird organisms in there. And then you come with your little medical kit and say, oh, they don't have any of that there. Let's help them out. And we go back. You know, it's the equivalent. You know, now there's other tragic stories from before with negative groups being on the planet. It's a whole other story. Or Mila, I know you've talked about they hijack your experience and make you think something else happened. That's all. There's so many possibilities. But like what you're saying, Dwayne, you cannot mistake a positive ET experience. That cannot be faked. So when
yeah,
you just feel love to the point where you might feel tingly or you might feel like cold, sometimes I feel cold, but in a good way. You feel like a little chilly, you know, you just feel this love welling up. Some people get the goosebumps or whatever you want to call them. You know, you cannot, a negative entity cannot replicate that. Now they can mimic or give us a screen memory or project over themselves like a lot on this planet are. It's called a glamour. They have a way of projecting or messing with our mind or a
yeah.
physical means so that we look at somebody, it looks like you or me, but take that down and it could be a green five-eyed monster to our eye, you know, to the storybook,
Mhm.
or let's just say not monster, individual. That goes on too. But the feeling, you don't mistake it. And they also do instantaneous healings. I had someone come through a reading. I was having a session with somebody. I mean, I was the person going to get the session. I didn't even have it on my mind. I had an injured foot. Well, the other person was open-minded and could tap into galactic stuff, but we weren't even doing that. All of a sudden, the person I'm talking with starts going, wow, I'm feeling heat going all the way up my body. And she had just given me the word thermodynamics before that. She said, I'm getting some message for you, thermodynamics. I'm like, okay, I wrote it down. I'm like, whatever. I know basics about thermodynamics. Well, these cheeky little monkeys, you know, they love to like play with us in a good way. A few seconds later, little did I know that was like a heads up. She starts saying, wow, she was surprised. Like, I'm feeling like warmth, and this is in my sinuses, usually my psychic center. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. She's feeling warm. I'm like, okay, something to do with thermodynamics. I guess it's for her. Well, a second later, she's in Australia, by the way. We're on a Zoom call. A second later, my light flashes on and off. It never does. And I'm like, oh boy. And then all of a sudden, I start getting like heat rising up my body too. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am too, right? Thermodynamics. Well, little do I know, we have our session. It was lovely, whatever. The next day, my heel, my foot, which had a broken toe and two fractures, was completely healed. That,
Yeah.
and I didn't realize it. That happened in the session before.
Yeah.
So then it came through that this was Galactics helping. Now look at, you can substitute Galactics. I know I say ETs or Galactics. That can be angels. Ang is messenger from God.
Interdimensionals.
Yeah, Ang in the avatar, that's messenger. Ang part. L is God. So wings, halos, auras, potato. You want to call him an angel, an archangel.
Right.
It all depends on, are they fallen or are they of the loving God, or are they the false light? There's
Right.
two lights, okay? False and like loving is how I look at it. But you cannot mistake. Anybody of the
Yeah.
darkness with ill intent cannot fake that love you described, Dwayne. That love
Yep.
that is just like
Exactly.
pure. And that is the light sitting behind you. I think my own suspicion is why you gravitate toward the gold there. Look at even the story. You said the guy came out of the bush. What are you doing? Drinking gold liquid. You are
Yep.
about black and gold, right? So anyway, it's a good thing and you cannot mistake it. That's all I want to say. And healings happen. I've experienced it from, like, I wasn't expecting it. And that was Galactic. And maybe, we can
Yep.
say it was our higher self. It was our family. I am strong with healing getting activated. It is said that I have connection with Arcturian, so that's why I'm resonating with that. And now I will hand it off to whoever.
I have
So
something
what
to add.
maybe just drifted over what you're talking about to me exactly because like in even in my business as a I mean I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, but I've went a whole different route with it, eh? And with the different route, even the what everyone would call the unconscious mind, I don't see it that way at all. The problem isn't the unconscious. The problem is the conscious because it's locked in a box. So I introduce people to this aspect of themselves. They step into it and they heal themselves. I'm not doing it. I'm just guiding them into how to go into that higher state. So, in a sense, by them showing me themselves in that golden light, yeah, you can't help. I mean, we have something called mirror neurons in our brain. You see something, you end up becoming it, right? You just become it. And so I think that's probably what you're sharing is that I maybe stepped into that same being, right? Or that was me, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? But I know people are surely happy when they connect to that greater part of themselves and are doing their own healing work, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we do that. We can step into it, or the healing moves through us. That's happened with me too, with someone. We're simply
Mhm.
here and we allow it. And just like anybody in connecting as Mila does too, you're allowing that presence to move through. And then
Mhm.
it embodies in the physical. I've had my hand, like the laying of the hands in the Bible. It's all real stuff. They even put it in the cartoon Kung Fu Panda. I think, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 or whatever, all the little, spoiler alert, panda bears all putting their hands on and healing one of the others. And it's very real. So it's where when I say I don't say like I healed or whatever, you're right. Healing moves through us, and whether you're opening somebody's eyes for themselves to see it, but yes, it very much physically can manifest and becomes, we're the bridge from the ethereal to the 3D through our hands, through something very tangible and physical. And then it somehow jumps, the trajectory of our little inner guard spark, it moves. And that's how it can work as well, right? But there's heat involved in the healings that I've experienced, which are really like bodily ones, whether it happened
Yeah.
to me or a heat builds up between me and the person. There is
Yeah.
something about this thermodynamics thing, right? Anyway, it's all good.
Yeah.
There's so many ways. There's no way it can't be. I think there's no something's done this way or this way. Like you said, that could have been you mirrored, that could have been others. But at the end of the day, I always refer to this quote by Neil Donald Walsh, there's only one of us in the room. We are the
Mhm.
God, we are the God presence, trajectories of little God sparks all over the place, but we all trace back to the one, right?
And that goes the same with the higher realms. There's only one in the room. You are all of those things.
Yeah.
You know, you are Christ. You are all of it. Right. And it's to learn how to expand that within us, sitting in this environment, you know, because I think that's the goal for the whole thing. Can you go through this and open up and still become the God you are,
Right.
right? And
You know
that's
what?
what,
Sorry.
go
Excuse
ahead.
me. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was trying to catch between the two. There's something I wanted to add about this because I'm certain people in the audience are there's gonna be people who've had these experiences and have questions, and um, the way that you can check in on that, is you send love to them and I learned an easy way to teach how to send love is that it's when you're thinking of someone that you just love dearly. They could be here or they could have passed, whatever, and just as you're about to say I love you, this energy builds up in the higher heart space, and you send it out to the person or the room, and it blows up like this. So it's not just about touching one person. Do that, send that out. And when you send that out, if you're not already feeling it, chances are, at least my experience is that, holy cow, you feel the love before you feel the first the first time that someone came to me that identified themselves as Jesus. I was in the deepest throes of depression that I have been in my life. Like I was ready to go. I was ready. And um, I felt the laughter in my chin. I didn't know that I knew how to laugh anymore. Like I hadn't for a long time. And I felt the laughter in my chin. And all of a sudden, like I was in this blissful, joyful state. And and that was then slowly this individual came forward that was identified as Jesus. And like this kind of transition that happens with the energy around you is usually pretty big. You can usually tell really well. I had three ETs come to me that later I found out were Arcturian as well. And these individuals would like to be identified as beings.
Mhm.
Um, but whatever, they don't actually care. Honestly, they really don't care. For correct purposes only. It's really logical reason for that choice in identifying. Anyhow, um, because a lot of them actually reside here, by the way. They're not out there at all. When they came forward for me, that was the first thing that I sensed, and it was such a strong, profound sensation of love that it woke me up. I was sleeping, and it swelled over me, and those types of experiences can't be ignored or faked.
Mhm.
But if you don't get those something like that, just send out the love. If they are of love, they'll send love back to you times a 300 or something. I don't know. I pick a number, it's
Yes.
a lot. If they're not of love, love is a repellent for those who are not aligned with the light, and they'll
Yeah,
flee. And so then you're chasing them away if you don't want those guys around anyway. So it works out great.
that's right. I played with that one time, and with Source itself, I send up a ball of love. At the time, I was using up as a reference. Now I'd use inside, but I sent it up and then it would expand it, like you said, 300 times, send it back to me.
Yeah.
And I'd feel that, whoa. And
Yeah.
I'd take that amount and send it back up and you'd expand it. And I kept doing this. And all of a sudden, I'm not kidding, guys. All of a sudden, my wall started to get bubbly
Ooh.
and it opened up. And there was that tunnel they talk about.
Yeah.
And so I went up into the tunnel, and then someone was there and says, "Are you ready?" And I says, "Yeah." And he says, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "Really?" I'm like,
Are you really sure?
I questioned myself, and then I was back in my couch, yeah, looking at the wall again.
That's fun.
I
All
guess
right.
my only point with that is that these spiritual experiences that you hear people talk about that can happen to you,
Yeah.
it just, I wasn't trying to make that experience happen. It just happened.
Yeah.
But everyone can experience really wild things.
Everyone is. At least a lot of people are.
Yeah.
I'm going to add one more thing. And then I think Brian and Cara might want to add something. I've not really asked them lately, but something else, is that this is something that I've been doing lately. Okay. So it's often in the place that we call sleep, but it's clearly, it's, sometimes astral, sometimes physically someplace else. This is during the time that we think we're sleeping, and wake up with interesting marks when you need kind of validation that you can ask for them, by the way, if you really want to know. Anyway, what's crazy though is it's these council meetings. We're in these committee meetings or something. Like it's a gathering of people. There's typically like if there's not a big table in the middle, we're pretending there is. You know what I mean? And it just keeps going. There's a lot of individuals there, and we're all counted as equals, by the way. Everybody, all of y'all are seen as equals to these high frequency beings, is what we call them. They're, in fact, they revere us in a lot of ways, which is really kind of funny to say. Um, anyway, we'll be in these meetings, and then there's like people popping up in the meeting and then disappearing again, and they usually say, "What the fuck?" and then they're gone. Like they do, and I just had to say it because that's quoted. You know, and or holy shit, and then they're gone. And it's like, this is people raising up and they don't know how they got there, obviously. It's clear. And
Yep.
what's so funny, it's so common that no one comments on it. Like there's been like two different times that one of the, I would call them elders, has actually made reference. And usually it's like, look, they're all waking up now. We got to do this. Like but no one really seems to notice them because it's these popcorn, it's almost like commercials popping up everywhere around you. It's really funny.
That's the original. What the? That's what I would do. I think like, what the? And then you're gone.
Yeah. Yeah. People tripping out.
Yeah.
Brian or Cara, would you like to comment since you haven't had a chance for a little while?
No, I haven't. But Cara, do you want to go first?
Um, just a quick ad about what you said. I had a similar vision where I kind of saw everybody that had attained that 144 frequency or whatever in a big circle, and I even saw myself there with everybody. But sometimes I would go to sleep, or then I'd wake up again, and others would go to sleep and then momentarily wake up again, and then it was like
Yes.
slowly all of us are paying more attention. And like you said about the 1/3, that's the 13, the goddess.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice that.
Yep, that's the frequency. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No, you're good.
Wow.
Share what you need to share. Um, I think it's it's interesting because listening to everybody, it's like more information drops in, which allows me to put more together before I actually speak, which
Mhm.
sometimes I would just say whatever was coming through as quickly as it came through before my mind could filter it, because that's when it starts to get messed up. I
Yeah.
find lately that my mind isn't filtering it as much, which is kind of an interesting experience in and of itself. But when we look at go back briefly to the image of the cross, and you brought that up perfectly, the vertical and horizontal, the cross being perfectly equidistant, from one another. And you look at the crosses, the vertical and horizontal dimensions, the being and the doing, that cross reference there, and go to even like the Red Cross and whatever. Hospitals use that cross for healing. And if you look at healing nowadays, it's looked at healing is a person's broken or messed up or whatever, when healing just means wholeness. It's coming back to ourselves. It doesn't mean we're broken or whatever.
Yeah.
Just coming back to ourselves. And that's what's kind of happening here. And then they kind of went into this thing. It's like, if we all look at ourselves as part of this divine orchestra, maybe some of us are playing violins, some of us are playing harps and pianos or whatever. Each of us has a unique frequency. But when we're all interwoven as one, which we always are, we don't necessarily know what that frequency is. And by coming here to this planet in this time, especially in this time, we get to hear that individual frequency that we couldn't hear. Some of the most trained vocalists or musicians, if they're really, really good, really well trained, they can listen in an orchestra and they can pick out someone in a certain role playing a certain instrument, even though it's all blended together. But we needed kind of, even though we're in a bit of noise now, this experience to look at that and even look at the divisions that we create within ourselves. Yeah, we have this last minute push even now to divide ourselves even more. Everyone wants us to identify ourselves. What do we do? What is our race, our sex? What is, and there's subdivisions even within that. And I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. There's subdivisions in that. There's 50 different categories to pick in each of these things, but there's a push to identify ourselves, politics and what religion, all that. What are we? And as Dwayne said earlier, that puts us in a box. It's not in that whole thing. Even they were telling me, they said, repeatedly we brought meditation to people to teach them to slow down their minds, to get in touch with their source, but that's been taken out of context. People use it as an escape. People treat meditation as something that's separate. Go sit on your yoga mat, go chant your om and go into that space, and then you return to the real world. But the meditation's still on the mat. So when you get confronted in real life with a cranky boss or a car accident or someone in a grocery store holding up a line, you can't tap into that because it's still on the mat. They wanted to be brought in so you become the walking meditation. Your ego is part of an expression of who you are. You don't separate it, demonize it. You integrate it into your life. You integrate your personality in your life. You integrate the thinking. You don't completely stop the thinking and slow it down to look at your thoughts. What's going on in your head? Not identify with them. When you start to drop the narrative of your life, the stories and things, doesn't mean what happened to us wasn't important. They help shape who we are. They help shape that individual frequency, that we are, to be able to experience it. It's important. Even the people that are suppressing knowledge and doing this stuff that we've talked about, the conspiracies, they played their part. They were supposed to do this stuff to keep us in this book. But now it's all circling back. This healing, this wholeness is all coming back. We had this. I mean, I think there were even, Varley can probably confirm or look into this, but I think there were even cave paintings and pictorials and ancient books and stuff that had man talking with what we consider galactic beings, or there's all kinds of names for them. They don't like being called aliens, but because that separates them from us. And is there really a separation? It's coming across, blurring the lines of separation within ourselves. It starts within ourselves. Let's stop identifying the ego, the thoughts, all the stuff that we demonized a part of our part. Start bringing that together, and then it comes out there to that, because they are reestablishing communication. They're eager to reestablish communication. The animals, the plants, the trees, we used to talk to them. We used to connect with them. We have ancient oral traditions that talk about this stuff. And now we're coming back around. Last week, I had this baby bunny show up near a log, chewing on grass. You know how they sip it in like a spaghetti, And I wanted to get a picture of it. When I went out there, I kept sending the signal out, please come out. I want a picture of you. And I get the feeling it was a she, reappeared. Not much on grass, just sitting there, like she was posing for the photograph I wanted. That was telepathic. I can't tell you how I did it, but something in me recognized the ability to be able to do this, an ancient gift. When we drop the narrative and realize what we are, all this blend of even the symphony within us, not just what that we're a part of, but within us. When we realize that, we realize the gifts we have, things we've forgotten, and we can communicate with animals, trees, plants, the earth itself, each other. It's like Pamela talked about, we've done this once before, but we had to forget to remember, because that was the only way we could experience the individual frequency through the illusion of separation, because we can never, ever be separated. It's impossible. No. But we can get it to a finite illusion, like a holodeck on Star Trek. We can hone it down to an illusion of separation enough to give us the experience, because the experience was the missing piece. All this history that's been glossed over and the missing pieces, they're coming back for a reason, because they are part of the story. They will fill in the missing gaps, the missing things in our DNA that was, is being reactivated, and missing strands are being deactivated. This portions of our brain and our bodies that they said was just junk DNA. Why is it all dormant stuff that's now coming back online, as if it's been waiting for some silent signal to trigger it? That we're ready. And now that we can come all the way around with all this knowledge and wisdom we've gained of what doesn't work in the human experience, now we have a whole wealth of stuff to work with when we come back into connection with these beings, with the planet, with nature, with life itself, with the ancient practices and wisdom that was never really lost. It was just, I think Pamela put it best, kind of put up on a shelf, like little kids, you put up toys that they're not ready for. We put it up on a shelf. Now we're ready to take it down. Now we're ready to look at it. If you've ever watched a book, watched a movie or read a book 10, 15 years down the line when you're a different person, it's a whole different experience, a whole different perspective. And that's what we're coming around at, healing that wholeness, that cross, the vertical, and now creating that perfect blend of the vertical and the horizontal, the being, the doing, the spiritual side of us and the human side of us, the perfect integration. There is a beautiful picture. We are pioneers, knights, it's an amazing process. So really, we're at this really unique time that if we really look at all of this, coming all back into this, it's mind blowing. It's incredible, but we don't have to look at all these spiritual practices as something separate, things we have to do, but look at them as an integration of a whole system. Just like our bodies work together, our hearts pump blood, our lungs breathe, all in perfect synchronicity with one another to keep us here on this planet in a physical body. We are part of that same orchestra, as within, so without, the orchestra within, the orchestra without. We have that unique frequency. We don't need to deny that. We don't need to deny any part of ourselves, that which we call shadow self, bad, good. They're just labels, Who we are is so much deeper than the labels and the context and all the stuff we've used to identify ourselves. We are not identifiable because we are beyond limit. We are beyond being identified. We are just the I am that I am. That's what we are.
Exactly.
Tangent, but sometimes that energy comes through and that's how it expresses itself. And I try not to hold it back. I've gotten better at that.
Exactly.
Yeah, just that.
That vibration that you're talking about, a lot of people don't realize that, they skip by it. They go and they do something else. It can't be me, all that. But no, it is you. And that vibration you feel, that vibration, you come back to that you anchor that thing, anchor it so that when you need it, you press the anchor and you come back to that feeling, because that feeling is everything that you're talking about.
Yeah. That's what it is, a feeling. It's not something you really can label or conceptualize, but when I say it, everybody recognizes in their own way what that is without having to put words to it.
So in my work, I elicit that feeling from people, and each one is unique and different. So I can't do it on a group level because you can't, or a CD or a thing. You have to have somebody sit with you and help you elicit that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's how I understand it.
Yeah. I just want to say
I'm muted. That's what's
you're
going
muted.
on.
I was like waiting.
I'm
and then
like,
Go ahead, and I
I,
had a quick thing on the cross image you put up.
yeah, that's actually what but it's the GPS of spirit is what I was saying, is that what you were talking about, that's what spirit calls it for me, is that once you sense it, then you can recreate it. And so that's also how, well, right now, a lot of us know that we're having the solar plexus and the sacral area as well as the root activations. And this has to do with mostly, largely due to us coming on, turning our, realigning our manifestation chakra, basically, the place of creation. That's why there's so many people reporting pregnancy-like symptoms, even birthing-like symptoms. There's a lot of, stuff about this, and that's very much connected to it. And it brings in once again that divine feminine, which is what I was saying earlier that I didn't know I was muted about, was this. um, Brian was making or reference to these crosses, and so I went and found more. Here's a whole bunch of examples of the Knights Templar crosses. Now I want to bring attention specifically to the one over here with the four links. Now these four links, I didn't ever see that with before until just now when I put these up for example. Now this is what we are turning into, energetically speaking. We are. And so for this to be hidden in the symbol of this cross is something that's noteworthy, that I'm not fully aware of exactly why. I just, this is what Spirit's been showing me. When we move from the Trinity to the Quadrinity, that's what it looks like. We've been holding a singular orb of light. We, you, me, everybody, we're a orb. Okay, our energy field was one. And that's why the mass exit's been occurring. When the occurrence really started at the Y2K window, it really accelerated in 2017. And that's coming to a near close in October this year of this mass exit. The mass exit implies that two-thirds of the planet are either going offline. I don't know a better word. I'm sure there's a better word. Or leaving. We may even experience them as having something to do with death. Sometimes they just never were. It's so peculiar how many people are like, over the past couple of years, this has happened, this phenomenon of people in the neighborhood like asking others, well, this person just died down the road. Do you know anybody who knows them? And no one knew them at all. Like, they don't ever bring groceries. There was no food in their house. There's no, like, the ways that human being is. It's just something. So this like concept of this one third that's happening right now has a lot to do with this need for space. See, when we have so much occupancy of light, then each individual can only be one orb, which we've been. But we are now three and coming into four. And that looks just like that freaking cross from the Knights Templar. And I'd never seen that symbol like that before. So
Can you bring that thing back up that you just had up with the different crosses on it?
yeah, I'll do it right now. Do I make it bigger or do you want this zoomed in like this?
Zoom out, zoom in a little bit, zoom out a little bit. Let's see, do you recognize that? You kind of come from the same period I do. Do you recognize that cross in the upper? For me, it would be the upper right hand corner, the really thick one.
Wait.
The top row.
Yeah, what is that?
It the cross that was on He-Man's plate there in the Masters of the Universe show. It was the exact same. I'm quite sure that's the exact same cross that was on his thing. Yeah, because I know you've shown Oracle. I know you love He-Man.
I just wanted to add one quick thing that I'm seeing with the red, the cross and the shield. Again, to me, that's important. That's significant of where this group is coming from. So back to the idea that the cross symbol, that point in the middle, is the intersection of the portal, tells me with the red color, they're coming in from a specific frequency or location connected with that color red, and they pop in. Now, the shield itself, the term shield, can be in the world in reference of stargates. Okay, there's a thing called shields, and they can also be tied with densities or dimensions. And I was just looking up, since you brought up He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, I was just looking at very quick about shields and stargates, and it says in the Stargate universe, shields are a form of energy defense, not a part of the Stargate itself. Stargates are ancient gateways used for intergalactic travel, while shields are protective force fields that can be used to defend ships or facilities. Stargate shields are often employed to prevent unwanted travelers from exiting a Stargate or to protect a city ship like Atlantis from hostile forces. This I want to bring up because right now in the mainstream news, we have the current sitting president trying to do this golden dome or what shield, and that's a whole nother topic. But I just want to wrap that up neatly because we got the color gold and that somewhere ties together, and I'm going to drop it right there.
Thank you. I have to chime in one more time for y'all's benefit because you can't see what I can see. Um, as earlier, I can't find the comment right now. Here it is. Roxy Girl says, two very wise men speaking today. And Chef Deb makes sure to point out, and women. Everyone's really enjoying what I am reading your comments. We're going live right now through Zoom instead of Restream, so I can't put your comments on the screen like I normally do. Just want you to know, all of you in the audience, I am reading. And also, if anyone who's in the show right now wants to go back and read those comments later on, afterward, you should be able to. Sometimes it takes a few hours before you can see the live comments, and then you can go back to the live chat. So, and then one more thing, right? Brian Roxy Girl says that's the Iron Cross, Brian. So, um, we have another, like 10 minutes or so of this chat. So, um, let's
So,
maybe
sorry.
break that down to be like 2 minutes per person.
Oh.
Starting with the person who's talked last, which is Kara. Is that okay if I put you on the spot, or do you want to wait for when you
No,
want to jump in?
that's totally awesome because you guys always give me so many visions and downloads when you talk. I just want to mention the ping pong machine, how when you were talking about, you know, all the parts are there, it's got the four corners. When you hit something, it lights up. So it's like all the parts are there ready to attain. It's just when you touch on that part, it lights up. And um, if you can't hit a certain part, you go down to the waiting bay, ready to start again. So thank you.
Thank you. The red cross you showed before is the same on Columbus's ship, says Omega. So, Dwayne, you want to chime in and then go to
Well,
Varley and then Brian?
a little bird came to my shoulder here and asked me to ask something. Uh, and well, it's about the Stone Age. There's a really weird thing about the Stone Age, guys, and that is that there are forests that are stone. There are these giants they're finding that are stone. Something happened. There's
Yeah.
these great big tree stumps that are cut off and
Hmm.
they're stone. Now, the rest of the tree doesn't seem to be there, but that stump is stone. It's something to contemplate as to what this Stone Age really was.
Yeah.
That they're hiding with the fact that we were monkeys running around with rocks in our hands. The truth is that something massive happened with these stones, like everything being turned to stone. Interesting, but
Yeah, it's very interesting. And if you look at most mountain ranges, you can just tilt your head to the side and look at the horizon of that mountain range, and you'll see most often a like silhouette of a person. You'll see,
yeah,
uh, yeah, that's crazy. Here it is. I found an example to show, so I'm gonna grab that for you. This is the one that people know most. It's most popular or famous, and this is called Devil's or
devil's
Devil's Tower.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, And there's a whole bunch of stories about this, but this is an example. This isn't the best photo. It looked better farther away. But if you look at this, you can see very clearly this is a stump. You'll find them all over the place. It's crazy. They just recently closed the Arches National Park, but most of these stone, rock places, if you look at it, taking away someone else's narrative, you realize in the time of giants, very, yeah. I wanted to let you finish. I just wanted to show that image and I
No,
talked.
no, I just wanted to bring it up. That's all. And they're not cut off with axes like a giant would use an axe to cut it off. It's cut clean like a laser or, you know, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And
Uh, but I mean, were they turning people to stone? Were they turning trees to stone? I mean, that Devil's Peak there or Devil's Tower, I mean, I forget someone said that that tree would have been 10 miles high.
right.
I mean, holy, you know. Did it have a different function? Trees that high up?
Right.
Who knows?
There are these stories of like that tell of these massive trees that were taken down in order to make it so the um the Titans couldn't climb the trees and avoid their destruction. The Titans were thought of as large beings,
Right,
giants, and that the mountain ranges, as well as being people, are also alligators, crocodiles, snakes. These caves, they call it Devil's Eye or God's Eyes. Sorry. And the when you get inside this big hollow orb-like cavern in this cave, you look up and you see two eye holes. You see two
yeah, yeah,
orbital sockets.
yeah.
Like this is stuff that's very likely occurring, that these are maybe something more. And
No, is this Jack and the Beanstalk
right.
with the giant up in the.
I just grabbed this image too for Brian. Yeah. And remember Paul Bunyan? What
Yeah,
was Paul Bunyan doing? He was going through and destroying all the big trees. Why? Why was
yeah,
he doing that? So,
He was a
yeah.
giant, wasn't he?
hmm?
Wasn't he a giant himself?
Yeah, that's why it felt like traitor kind of stuff. It's like he helped. If the story's correct, it sounds like he helped extinguish his people.
Hmm.
If it's true.
If it's true, yeah. But everything's inside out and upside down in this little little trip we're taking here. So
Yes.
we got to sit down and unfold it and turn it right back up again the way it's supposed to be. And because a lot of things are, they'll say, oh, you know, he this and he that. And then you come and find out, no, it really wasn't when you get into the archives of a story like that.
Right.
Anyway,
Thank you. Um, who would like to go next?
I'll go if it's okay.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Laura, did you want to go? I'll do a lightning round. Well, first of all, you know them by their fruits, right? They say in the whatever thing used over and over again from the Bible, right? By their fruits you shall know them, right? So we all know things have been distorted, but that's a little kernel of truth in that one with Paul Bunyan. Guys, what team is he playing with? He's got a blue ox, right? He's wearing red flannel. Again, we got the red blue imagery. I can tell you he's not one of our loving being kind. Okay. The story, whatever he's doing is not somebody who is like pro humanity. Okay.
Right.
You got the bull, the satanic imagery. It's blue and it's red, like we've talked about the division. But anyway, and on the Jack and the Beanstalk, I was just going to say that because that's been on my mind. I was going to do a show involving that fairy tale. It's been on my mind this week. But absolutely the connection between, is it giants? Well, is it titans? So the beanstalk idea could be in the Devil's Tower, could be going titans and giants. And then there's mankind. There's like different levels of gigantic beings, right? But anyway, real quick, lightning round. Roxy Girl, you amaze. The Iron Cross reference. What do we have? Iron is Fe, is the symbol. What do we have? Blood. So the red blood, we have that whole blood association with these death cults. So that red cross could very much be about the blood. Also about iron oxide. That's the color of rust is red. Some talk about Nibiru, Wormwood Star, whatever you want to call it, as being the origin planet of some of these characters. And that would explain that, iron oxide color as well. I can't remember the name of whomever made the comment about the red cross on the ship with Christopher Columbus. Again,
Oh, I
we
was
have
just gonna pull that up.
mythology. Huh?
I
Who?
found it. I was gonna pull that up next. Go home, grab it
Okay.
right now.
Okay, what team is that? What team is Columbus? Columbia, District of Columbia, mythological gods, what team they're on, right? However, you put Christopher Columbus's name into Spanish. His last name is Colon. You have colonies, okay? So we're tying all of this in together for the story. And anyway, and then and also when Columbus came over, there are stories that these sailors, they're tried and true, they're not like hallucinating, that they saw these big glowing orbs over the ocean guiding them. So there you go. That could be, alien, we talked about it, ET craft, okay, over the ocean. And yeah, and then just going back with your giant devil's tower. Yeah, of course, that's a tree if I ever saw a stump. So that's a whole nother topic. Oh, but that reminds me, we're closing all the parks. Why? Because the things are surfacing. They're coming to the surface. We can't have us human beings, us chickens running around seeing the real truth because literally they're going to be unearthed. Like you've got all your crystals popping up everywhere, Mila. That's going to start happening in these other, territories where all this stuff's just literally going to pop up out of the sand or whatever. And oh, we can't have the public knowing what's going on in there, right? Same thing with the oceans, what's popping up in the oceans, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, that's it.
Right. I mean, as we long have known, the national forests are national forests because there's stuff within the depths of them. I don't know about anybody else, but I was a deep woods backpacker person for a time in my life. And you get to a certain place in every national forest where there's some guys hanging out. And they're usually dressed like they're campers, but they're very official. They have that police energy about them, and they quickly usher you out. They're like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Asking you questions as they're also like guiding you away. And I'm just saying, we know that there's over 600,000 pyramids on this planet. And I'm telling you right now that, yeah, maybe a lot of them are in the water, but not that many. So, anyway. And Kara, was it Kara that didn't speak? I,
It was me. Um, Basically, we wrap it up as the number 13 is associated with transitions, change, new beginnings in various fields, spirituality, personal development can represent a doorway to a different state of being or a period of significant transformation. And we need to remember at this period in time, we're writing the story. Just like you said, our manifestation abilities and creation abilities are being realigned. We are writing the story. We're writing the next chapter. We're more in control than we have been led to believe. So if you want to believe Friday the 13th is a bad day, you have that free ability. If you want to
right.
believe cats are bad, but when you don't identify with either good or bad of anything, you open up to the miracle of it. You open up to what is really there, neither good nor bad, but there's a miracle. There's magic in these things. If you look, and some of the most important clues, and we've talked about this before, is the stuff that people try to steer you away from. Friday the 13th give it a bad rap because they want to steer you away from it. The movie Friday the 13th, just to segue back to that real quick, that was critically panned by critics. They tried to steer people away from seeing it, saying it was a crappy movie. But yeah, Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street, those are groundbreaking. But the one with the hidden symbology and stuff in it, yeah, that's the one they don't want you to watch. So you're told to stay away from things, or like the 13th floor, or mirrors behind doors and things, which mirrors are portals. Well, all that stuff, that's the stuff to pay attention to. There's your clues right there. But we're writing the story, so you believe what you want to believe. Help create something that we want to create. Don't look at what's going on around us as this chaos and stuff like that, because that's what's waking us up and allowing us to write the new chapter. But actually, it's not even a new chapter. We're going a whole new book here, whole new series. We're done with that. So help write it. Don't buy into what has been, because that's going away.
Yeah, exactly.
definitely. We're undoing a false history so that correct, because history doesn't really exist, not in the way that I was trying to look for more references to give you examples to what you were saying, Brian, but there are a lot of images. Um, I'm not finding this very second where you can back up what you were saying.
Mhm.
You know, like all of you have been such amazing guests. Like I would go on longer if I could, but I have a date with a 10-year-old, so I made a promise, so I got to get going. Um, on this magical Friday the 13th, I am so honored to be sharing this space with all of you. Thank you so much for being a part of this, and I hope that in the future you'll come back because I feel like we're going to be doing these kind of every other week or something like that for a little while. So
Definitely.
there's a lot to uncover, and the nature of these types of conversations in group provides a unique kind of energy where more things can be shared. And as you see, we came to talk about Friday the 13th, we've talked about so many topics.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? That really helped a lot of people. You know, I saw a lot of thank yous and things like that, gestures, comments in the audience, you know, and a lot of hearts coming up on the YouTube. I'm seeing it right now. So there's a lot of thanks from the audience as well as from me for all of you for being here today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
it was nice meeting all of you.
Yes.
Thank-
And I hope to do this again sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, And just a reminder that we are doing a group meditation on solstice night. So those of you who are interested, that's next Friday. And solstice is officially at 9:42 p.m. Central Time. So the idea here, the plan for me that I'm having here is that we're gonna do the meditation to where we've already started when solstice window comes, you know, so it will be a late meeting. So those of you that you know are different time zones may or may not want to join, just putting that announcement out there for you all. Um, it's love donation based. You don't have to have money to come, you know, and so I hope that all of you would come and I'll put out an announcement and post that in the community section of the YouTube channel as well as on the Telegram group. So and I hope to see you all there then.
Good
Thank
night.
you so much.
Thank
And
you.
I'll see you on Wednesday with